no further. TDC Shipping has you covered with reliable cargo solutions by land, air, and sea. Whether it's a package from across the world or a large shipment of goods, TDC Shipping makes it easy, affordable, and stress-free. And with our Airbox service, ordering from your favorite online stores just got even easier. Ship straight to your mailbox and let TDC Shipping handle the rest. Fast, secure, and even to your door. Visit us today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Park or Penny's Industrial Site, or call 465-2511 in St. Kitts or 469-5430 in Nevis. TDC Shipping, where reliable service meets unbeatable convenience. TDC, together we succeed.
On Sunday, June 29th from 4 p.m., Carib Beach Club transports you to Destination France for White Sands Parisian Soiree, featuring the White Swimsuit Competition. Spitmasters, DJ Smudge and DJ Terra out of Circuits and Nevis, DJ MJ of Dominica, Travis World and Lums out of Trinidad, and Bishop Escobar of Jamaica. Captivating performances by Sugar City's very own Lucas H.E. and David House and Mr. Mention. Appear for the first time in St. Kitts, dance on Jamaica. Performing his biggest hits, Jamaican dancehall sensation, and bringing the energy from Trinidad, Miguel Tasia. White Sands will be hosted by top DJ and radio personality Sweet Sister Sensia and Jamaican radio host CJ Spark. Tickets are just $120. Pay $150 at the door. For online tickets, visit Carabola-Beach-Club.com. It's a French affair on Sunday, June 29th at Carabola Beach Club for the summer's hottest all-white party. White Sands Parisian Soiree.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
A pleasant good day to you and yours. The time is approximately 4 minutes moving away from the 10 o'clock hour. Welcome to today's edition of Inside the News, a weekly program geared towards keeping you abreast with what is happening in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the wider Caribbean, and oftentimes even around the globe. I'm going to be keeping you company along with our host today, Mr. Chesley Hamilton. And later on in the program, when we open the lines, the number that we would like you to call are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989. In the UK, 033-344-0065. In the US, 718-285-6884. And in Canada, It's 305-921-4619. Let me repeat the number I gave you prior as it relates to the USA. The number is 718-285-6984 and not 6884, unless my eyes are deceiving me. Without further ado or delay, we'll take you over to our host, our esteemed host. Good morning, Mr. Chesley Hamilton.
Good morning, Quint. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I am well. Good morning to the listeners wherever you are and by whatever medium you're listening via, whether the airwaves or the internet, YouTube, Facebook, whatever source you're getting us. We're happy to have you. Quint,
Yes.
inside the news. A number of things inside the news. I tend to look at the news this way. Something happened, and the media house or the person putting out the news put their version to it. You know, we have Bibles, we have the Gospel, we have the King James Version, we have the American Standard Version, we have different versions of the same facts, the same evidence, the same thing.
Do you know there was even a slave version of the Bible?
Yes.
Yeah, there was a version that kept out certain things so that the slave were kept ignorant.
Yes, I mean one of our major newspapers has a verse. It said Titus 2:8, sound speech that cannot condemn, but that is only part of that verse. The other part of the verse, or just before that verse, it has a part, slave obey your masters.
Yes.
It is in the same chapter. And that's why, sometimes it pays to read the whole chapter.
Most
rather
definitely.
than just a verse or a part of a verse. So I'm just trying to say to you that, there is different spin, different angles, different narrative to the same set of facts. And therefore, I want the audience to understand that and to bring their narrative towards the towards the issues more so than to hear a news item and we discuss it as though that is the gospel.
Yeah.
Therefore, one of the things I would be speaking about today is the whole issue of the decriminalization of marijuana.
Okay.
But the version and the narrative I'm going to have today is not necessarily the legalistic and the legislation in terms of marijuana. I want to show people that alcohol in St. Kitts and Nevis is not legalized, as you would say. It is also decriminalized.
Yeah.
And therefore, is the decriminalization of alcohol that I want to compare to what the government is doing with the decriminalization of marijuana.
Okay.
And ask some hard questions as to why there are these variations in terms of how we are dealing with marijuana as opposed to dealing with alcohol. I'm asking the questions because, not because I have all the answers, but I want to open the discourse so that people can understand where we can go, where we are going, and why we should go in certain directions, and ask the hard questions, because I don't think we are handling the industry right.
Okay. I myself don't know much about it. I've heard occasionally it's on, and next thing you know, okay, let me see if I can, yeah. Is that better for you?
Much better.
Okay. Occasionally I hear that the talk is on, discussion is on, and then we hear a period of silence. Then the people seem to, one or two voices agitate, and then we hear something about it fleetingly, and then it goes away again. So I don't know really where it stands.
Here's where I want to take the discussion, and then I hope that when the callers come in, they can contribute in a meaningful way, because it's no need to just repeat what is out there, because then that brings us to a saturation point in terms of a narrative that maybe the government or whoever want us to have, and then nothing else can then be said in that airwave. A good example of that is this. Some years ago, during an election campaign, the People's Action Movement, we were dealing with public debt, and we were bringing all sort of things to say that the public debt is out of control, and we were bringing figures and facts, and we were warning the country that the public debt is getting out of hand and spending. Well, the government response was through the Prime Minister, where he just coined a phrase and said public debt by, and that was that dealt with all the discussions surrounding public debt.
Yeah.
You understand? So sometimes you could be out there and you reach a saturation point, and then there is a phrase or key where you just put a circle around it, and whether you knock the ball out of the park or nobody wants to hear anything more about that.
Well,
then it all came to a head when we went to the IMF, and then the public debt debt to GDP ratio was over and out of control, and then we went to land for debt swap, which brought it back down, and so on. We don't want to go through those sort of narratives and those sort of processes in terms of how we handle issues.
Well, before he went deep into the land for debt swap, he also made another statement which a lot of people seem to have forgotten. I heard him on a discussion, and he said, "National debt, what? We're land rich."
Yes. So I'm just showing you how you could deal with an issue and have it evolve. That is why I want to deal with this issue of marijuana and compare it in terms of what we're dealing with in terms of the decriminalization of alcohol.
Yes.
Many people will know that there are two amendments to the U.S. Constitution dealing with alcohol.
Yeah.
One first banning it and making the United States a dry country, and then they started importing, the Al Capone and they start importing alcohol and bootlegging and running alcohol from Canada down, and whiskey and moonshine and all that sort of thing. Then there was another amendment to legalize / decriminalize alcohol in the U.S. We are not at that juncture. Alcohol, by and large, is decriminalized. You can buy alcohol. You need a license to sell alcohol. Yes, you need a license to sell alcohol. So people line up at the magistrate court and they get the liquor license to sell, and you have to have certain things. You have to have a certain establishment, and you're not supposed to have it exposed to children and all sort of things. You wouldn't believe this kind of thing. There are a number of regulations that are there when you're selling alcohol. You can't sell it on Good Friday, and you're not supposed to be selling it on Sundays unless unless in certain establishment. The issue is alcohol is very much regulated, but there were times when you would know, Quint, where people will be over in the swamp and in the pond over at Connery stealing, alcohol. Well, let's not call it stealing, manufacturing alcohol.
Yeah.
And these people, rather than encourage the homegrown industries and the micro manufacturing industry, police went and, destroy them and lock them up and jail them and disregard these people as the worst in the society.
Yeah.
Now, if we had encouraged those people to develop their micro industries, today we might have been, we would probably have rum to rival Monge, which has been around since, I think, either 16 or 18 something, we would have have, you know, like the Appleton family in Jamaica. We would have encouraged our own locally grown rum and spirits. But again, if it wasn't done by a white person, a Caucasian person, it was not allowed.
Yeah.
And therefore, only the metropolis, only the capital of London, and they were able to do refined products and manufacturing products. We produced the raw material, the cane, the molasses, not even the sugar we were allowed to produce. All finished products were produced in the metropolis, in the capitals, and then sold back to us. So therefore, we weren't allowed to do manufacturing. We weren't allowed to do alcohol. We were not allowed to deal with we were not allowed to deal with whiskey and bourbon and these other spirits and beverages. That was not for us. So we weren't allowed to make those kind of money from the finished product and the end products.
During the period of when, as you stated, when the stilling of rum was illegal in the United States of America, that period was called the Prohibition period.
Yes.
And during that period, the Kennedy family, they were runners of moonshine. That is how they garnered their early stages of wealth. And when I say the Kennedy family, I mean the family from which we got Robert F. Kennedy and so on and so forth. So as you said, down here we were beating down our locals, and around the world people were benefiting from it as long as they were Caucasian.
And that went further, because when the son became president, it was said that it is the connections between those people in Illinois, in Chicago, and the family that allowed them to deliver that state for him and give him a narrow victory.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say much more about that because I want to take it back to the local scene.
Yes.
You know, Hammond, as we call it, was illegal. We prosecuted people. We locked them up. We deprived families of income. We decided because of the colonial laws that these people would be put in prison, would be jailed, would be fined, and would be denied a livelihood. Today, the law hasn't changed, but people are producing and selling Hammond as if it is legal to manufacture it and legal to sell it. I have a little problem with it, just a little problem. Not that I don't want people to be, because I have a problem that the government isn't saying, listen to me, we want you to have these micro industries, but bring it to the lab where we can test it, label it, give you the proof, know what proof you're selling and so on. I am seriously upset, frustrated, and vexed that we are not saying that we can regulate moonshine, Hammond, whatever you are producing, and regulate it better. Have the people paying the appropriate taxes, have the people buying the manufacturing license. I am hearing none of that.
No, yeah, you're right.
I am hearing none of that. No manufacturing license. You're not paying your taxes. You're not getting a license to manufacture and a license to distribute. Nothing. And people are buying these products. Then we are going further. You hear people talking about, oh, I got a formula. So they're combining different products and synergies of products, putting them out on the market, which is now, the formula is now, the color is green because, they're mixing the Hammond and the marijuana, and they're selling it, they're using it again. No labeling, no quantities, no measurements. Why isn't the government saying, listen to me, these are products which our people are producing? We should be able to regulate. We should be able to test. We should be able to say, listen, these are products which we are selling, and here's how we can sell them. Just give the people a manufacturing license, a distribution license. Bring it within the family of taxation. Maybe we will develop such a good product that it will be available for export in time to come. Because people come here, they sample it, and they say, listen to me, I would like to take this product elsewhere. We are not doing that. But listen to what we are doing with the marijuana. You have to get a license. If you're a Rastafarian, you need the one from the ecclesiastic ministry. If you are into medicinal marijuana, you need the one from a different ministry and from the board. For personal use, you need a different license. And then you can use it around children, so therefore maybe you could go to a lounge, and then the lounge need another license. If you're transporting, you need a license to transport it, right? I don't see nobody got a license to transport alcohol.
So why are these...
I could go and buy 20 cases of beer or 20 cases of wine to keep a party. A matter of fact, I could have a wine cellar in my basement or wherever and have all sorts of different things. I don't need a license.
So why all these different aspects and variations of...
I'm boiling it down to the position where people in power do not like ordinary people empower themselves. Because it's the ordinary man, the entrepreneurial spirit in the ordinary person that are finding these ways, these entrepreneurial ways, these margins, this way of doing things, the genius of these people to survive and to bring things to bear, the edibles, the oils, the different things that these. But I am saying, why aren't we testing and regulating? That's where the government should be. So when people doing the brownies, the cake, the sugar cakes, all of these things, the government has a duty to say these things should be properly labeled.
Well, in defense of, I know recently we had someone from the department, I don't remember exactly, you might be more Fabe, being that you have a legal background, but the individuals, it seemed the head of the individual who is a part of licensing and so forth for these goods and commodities, he came here and he did say that for, I think, a period of maybe 10 years or more, they have been trying to entice the masses of the people to go along that vein. So to that extent, yes, they have been trying, but not as far as I know in relation to the marijuana. And as you stated, there's all these different aspects of things that, in my opinion, are set to retard individuals being able to go in and capitalize from the trade.
Therefore, I would like to compare. You get a liquor license, you open your place, you distribute, you sell. You sell whether a drink or you sell a bottle, you sell retail, you sell wholesale. I'm going to give you an example. In Ontario, there's the Liquor Licensing Board of Ontario. The Liquor Licensing Board buys all the liquor, and then it distributes it to who? A matter of fact, they used to have liquor stores. And you had to go to the liquor store to buy the liquor. Now, there's a conservative government of, I think it's Ford in Ontario, and he decided, listen to me, you're supposed to be able to pick up a 6-pack at the gas station. You're supposed to be able to go into the store, the shop, and when you pick up your groceries, you pick up some wine or you pick up a 6-pack as well. So therefore, it is being liberalized in Ontario. But for years, it was the government the liquor licensing board, who regulated alcohol in the province of Ontario. And they did the major buying overseas, they did the major distribution, and so on. We have and I'm calling it this, the marijuana boards.
Yes.
Right? To govern this product. So they're supposed to be able to deal with these things. But I guess they're having a bit of a teething problem. We don't have a similar alcohol board.
Yeah.
And those are the comparisons that I'm showing. We don't have the same. Alcohol is liberalized, privatized, and put out there with its standardization out elsewhere. So the proof and these things are put on out there before we buy it, because we still, by and large, import.
Yeah.
I mean, we manufacture beer and these things, and those are done here. But similarly, we are not doing the same thing in saying, listen to me, our marijuana industry will meet these basic standards. We will put in place the labs so that you can bring your product and have it tested so that you know the percentage of the active ingredient, the resin that is in your plant that is grown in Phillips's, or the different from the plant that is grown in Bastille, or different from the plant that is grown on the west side. And therefore people can say, listen to me, this here is a good, whether it's Colombian gold or homegrown or the hydroponic, what levels are in these products based on the testing and the labeling provided by the government lab.
Yes.
You understand? But private individual and private people would be able to, just like you possess and deal with alcohol, you'll be able to deal with the marijuana in a similar fashion. So I can now have a liquor license and a marijuana license.
Yeah.
Pay the government my taxes, pay for the license, and pay for the taxes on my sales.
Yeah.
They used to call it the excise tax.
Yeah. Well, here's what I want us to do. Take a bit of a break, and we'll be back, and you can continue along that vein.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Building supplies, electrical supplies, furniture appliances, carpets and tiles. It's the company where you can get it all. All at TDC, home and building depot. From lawn and garden, the TVs and stereos. All at TDC, home and building depot. Come on down, get what you're looking for. It's all at TDC, home and building depot. People make the world go round.
And we are back. The time, 29 minutes moving away from the 10 o'clock hour. We have with us Mr. Chesley Hamilton, in my opinion, one of our leading legal luminaries, and he is the host for today. Before we get back to him, I'm going to say to him that I'm going to give you you can give me the heads up as to when we can begin to open the lines and entertain call. In the meantime, you continue with your discussion.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We have a situation where the sacrament. People are gonna tell me, well, it's grape juice or it's not, it's not
Strong
strong
alcohol.
alcohol. But churches can have their wine as their sacrament, and they can buy how many bottles of grape juice or how many bottles of wine they want and have it. Right. So therefore, if I am a Rastafarian and want to have my sacrament, you're gonna say, well, I can only have for my personal use 5 trees, or if I need to, if I'm a Rasta organization, I need to have a license so that we can have our celebration where. The regulations are far more onerous and burdensome. And again, then you're going to say, well, okay, we don't want you to be smoking around children. Well, you're not supposed to be drinking alcohol and or have children buying alcohol either. The regulations are there to govern that area. So why can't the regulations mirror those of what we have done in the regulation of alcohol? I do not see why we are being more onerous, more burdensome. I cannot see the duplicity other than to say it's more bias and prejudice in an industry rather than we honestly want to liberalize this industry and open it up for the benefit and the empowerment of our economy, diversifying it. And I'm going to say to anybody, if you don't want to drink rum and alcohol, you don't have to. But the brewery employs so many people. The shops and the bars employ this amount of people. The people who come here and they love the Carib beer in the dark bottle.
Yeah.
We market these things. We have these things as part of what we produce and sell to the outer world. And therefore, again, if part of our tourism product is that you can leave where you are and come here for 2 weeks and roll a piece of homegrown or whatever you are simply saying and enjoy that in St. Kitts safely, like people would travel to the coffee shops of Amsterdam and elsewhere and enjoy certain other things. If you're going into these products, yeah, the church might say, well, boy, we're going into Sin City or we're going down here. And these are the sort of things. We liberalize and legalize gambling in St. Kitts without any big noise. Once ago, we could only go to the Royal St. Kitts to play tables and to gamble. Now you can go over to Port Zante. You could go in any place and pull the one-arm bandits. You could go all over the place because they have been liberalized, right? Without any. But the taxes that comes back, whether to support health or to support sports or to support whatever, those are the benefits that the society say, well, we are going to get money from these sin taxes.
Yeah.
Right? It's about regulating. It's about regulations. The other day I heard, even in the Nevis Island Administration, they passed the Gaming Act. You give it a great name, I mean, they didn't say the Gambling Act. They said the Gaming Act.
Yeah.
What is the Gaming Act?
Yeah.
To allow these certain establishments to have the capacity and the ability to offer certain products.
I'm going to put my take on it, but my take is that we are so steep in the colonialistic ways of the past that our leaders, even when they get into positions of authority, they just automatically continue it. And then when they go abroad and they sit around the tables with these external individuals, these external individuals are quite happy with them because they know that our leaders are helping to impede the progress and progression of their own locals so that they, the external ones, can import their alcohol and their gaming this and their gaming that, and they can make maximum profit.
and have what you call economies of scale,
Yeah.
because they're expanding into the, and then you come and say, oh, this is a reputable company who owns this and own that. Well, what have you done to facilitate local ownership?
Yeah.
What have you done to say, let us empower our indigenous population? You know, I criticized the Denzel Douglas government one time for saying, oh, we're going to give so many acres of land for stevia. And I said, well, and they're going to give so much land for somebody else. And they gave land for development of that piece of land down just outside Sandy Point, and other people. And I say, well, why don't you give 10 individuals a cane field?
Yeah.
So that they could, and the government put in the infrastructure so that they can go and say, well, we're going to have a residential development. Why didn't you give that to TDC? So that TDC couldn't say, well, we have our hardware store, we're going to go into homes. Then give the similar thing to Horseworth, and then give to Builders Paradise. So Builders Paradise can build a residential area, TDC can build, and so on. Why didn't you give these local companies a cane field each?
No,
Because no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to empower our local, but then you're going to bring in foreigners who many times don't have the money, don't have the income, but you have given them tax-free, you're giving them duty-free, you're giving them the land, and sometimes you then have to then still provide them with the utilities and also provide them with finances. I can't understand that. And what we get out of it? Oh, our people are going to get jobs. They're going to get jobs.
Yeah.
And then you say, but you can't pay them more than this, and you can't pay them more than that. So you bring in the Marriott and you say you can't pay them more than OTI.
Yeah.
And you bring in the Hyatt and you say you can't pay them such and such. But you could only pay them what the local in because you're gonna there's gonna be a brain drain. You're gonna attract all the workers if you pay them at that rate. And no, I can't support these kind of things.
No,
And the reason I can't is, listen to me. You could go to St. Croix when Hess was down there, and you could literally say, that person working for Hess, that person working for Hess, because you could see the change in the status and the income and how they move up the social status because they were working for Hess, the manufacturer, the oil company.
Yeah.
Similarly, when you see when Four Seasons came to Nevis, you literally know, most people in Nevis had two jobs. They had the government job and they had a Four Seasons job. But you could literally say, listen to me, see how this person is building and they're moving up and so on, and because they also work at Four Seasons and they work with the government. Yeah. You must be able to see when you bring something to the area, you could literally see the upward mobility, and because there is a net impact or infusion of income into the society, not the
downpression of your people.
Yes. Or depression of the market.
Yeah.
And therefore, that is my 2 cents in opening and setting the table for the universal discourse. And I encourage it. Please call in.
That is not 2 cents. That's $5 there.
Well, I'm still working on my 40 acres on my mule. So if you go and give me my penny halfpenny right now, I can take it.
So the listening audience, the phone lines are open. I did see the lines occasionally blinking, but now Chesley has given the go. The lines are all open, so the number again, the numbers that you can call are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989, and if you are in the UK, the number is 033-344-0065, and in Canada, 305-921-4619. And in the U.S. of A, I think it is. I'm gonna have to see if I can get my little reading glasses out, because this one is giving me a bit of a problem. USA 1-718-285-6884, or if it's not 6884, it's then 6984. I'm not too sure. but those are the numbers you can call, bearing in mind that I'm not sure all of them are working, but if you try one and you don't get through, feel free to try another. Okay, let's take a bit of a commercial break and we'll be back.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
If you need insurance, our service is the best. Home motor insurance can give you more for less. Property insurance can save you a lot of stress. At TDC Insurance Company Limited, we care about your investment. Guarantee you peace of mind. The best team in the business. Guarantee you peace of mind. No other company will guarantee you peace of mind. Together we'll succeed and guarantee you peace of mind. TDC Insurance Company Limited, where you get more coverage for less.
Oui, oui! On Sunday, June 29th from 4 p.m., Carib Beach Club transports you to Destination France for White Sands Parisian Soiree! Featuring the White Swimsuit Competition. Spitmasters, DJ Smudge and DJ Terra out of Circuits and Nevis. DJ MJ of Dominica. Travis World and Lums out of Trinidad. And Bishop Escobar of Jamaica. Captivating performances by Sugar City's very own Lucas H.E. and David House and Mr. Mention. Appearing for the first time in St. Kitts, Dancehall Aunties Jamaica. Performing his biggest hits, Jamaican dancehall sensation. Wow. And bringing the energy from Trinidad, Miguel Deja. White Sands will be hosted by top DJ and radio personality Sweet Sister Sensia and Jamaican radio host CJ Spark. Tickets are just $120. Pay $150 at the door. For online tickets, visit CaribolaBeachClub.com. It's a French affair on Sunday, June 29th at Carabola Beach Club for the summer's hottest all-white party. White Sands Parisian Soiree.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
And we're back. The time is approximately 10:43, and I just saw the phones lighting up, but it has ceased. It's back again, so we have our first caller for today. Good day, caller.
Good morning, Brother Quint.
Yeah, good day.
Good morning. I'm going to say the Honorable Attorney Hamilton.
Good morning.
Good morning to all the listeners. My name is Winston. Welcome. Mr. Hamilton, I am glad that you came back again because you are so knowledgeable and full of so much of inspiration that I was so glad that I didn't miss this. Now, Mr. Hamilton, pertaining to the situation in the Federation, where do you stand to show some example of leadership? Because your diligence, which is are needed. I don't know what your plan in this upcoming election. I'm just trying to catch a whale. But knowing the situation, like I said, would you be willing to participate? I mean, you know there are existing parties, and they have failed us. And to my understanding, I know you made an attempt with People's Action Movement. But would you be willing to jump in the arena as an independent? Because not independent as an independent oneself, but as a body. Because I am pushing the fact that I am a candidate And I am looking forward and praying, hoping for more. I see an endorsement there. I beg to move that you should, and you shall, enter. And let's turn this country around with the utterance that you are uttering. We need that. I have another question to ask, but I prefer ask one at a time and get answer. I will rest there.
Okay, caller.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your question and thanks for your endorsement, but I am one who feel that at my good right age of 62, I'm not supposed to be entering politics. I'm supposed to be exiting politics. And therefore, before I'd have said that I would not give up my Canadian citizen and enter politics. But in the last election, I did that. So I did that because I felt there was a need at the time when I saw what was happening with an effort in which I worked hard to put together was being derailed, sidetracked, and undermined. And I'm not afraid to say that. What people don't know and what they may hear now for the first time is this. In March of 2022, I think it was March 2nd or 3rd, the Honorable Sean Richards came up by my home in Godwin and had a conversation with me. And in that conversation, I will show you the gesture. He said to me, "I've had it." And if you know Sean, he has long fingernails. And therefore, when he does that, he said, "I've had enough." And I said to him, "Well, take your time. Do what you're going to do. Plan your time in, and I will support you 100%. Mind you, remember, this was the government that did not give me anything, did not pay me, did not, which I raised significant funds to put together. But he came up to me and he had a discussion with me. Sometime in April, May, around there, when the stuff hit the fan, I knew since in March before I went to Toronto. And didn't tell my family anything, did not tell anyone anything. And therefore, I didn't ask my family to renounce my citizenship. I asked the input. I told them. I literally said, "I am informing you. I'm not asking you if I should do it." My brother wasn't agreed. My mom remained silent because that's my mom. My mom would not interfere in her adult children's life, whether it's their personal life with their husband's wife, maid, anything. She doesn't. But there are certain things I could read from her silence. You understand? And I'm saying that to say to you, I have made my decision right now that at 62, it's not for me to be entering politics. I remember some years ago, almost 30 years ago, you hear much ago? Timothy Harris said that Kennedy Simmons was old and he needed to go home and enjoy his pension. That was before 20 years of Denzel Douglas, 7 years of Timothy, and 3 years. And 3 years of Terrence Joe. So that's 30 years ago. Timothy Harris said, Simmons should go home and enjoy his pension. Well, Simmons is now 89. Timothy Harris is more than 60. So sometimes we should be people of our word. I want to be a person of my word. It's not that I say I wouldn't enter politics. I didn't want to give up my Canadian citizenship. But in order, when my country came calling, I did. And I'd enter the arena and enter the fray in constituency number 8, my hometown of Keon. I gave it my all. The people spoke. I did. In the words of an 8-year-old, I didn't lose. I just didn't win. An 8-year-old taught me that. He said he wasn't a loser. He just didn't win.
You have a caller. You have another caller.
Yeah. So I would just close by saying this. I have run 3 times. I didn't win 3 times. It's time for me to exit candidate politics. Go ahead.
Caller.
Yes, good morning to you gentlemen in the studio.
Good morning.
Yes, Quint, thank you for bringing back the guests.
No,
Yeah,
let me. I don't bring back Chesley. You know, Chesley has offered to come. Chesley makes his own decision. You know, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you, man. That's what adults do, right?
Yes.
And parents don't meddle in adults' affairs. I like to hear that from his mom, from what he said about his mom. There's a lot to talk about, but let me get to it real quick. Concerning the Bryant clause, what advice would you give a person who may want to strike and put their name on the ballots in regard to that clause? And what I'm going to try to get at with you is we see the behavior of these politicians, and it's surprisingly that it takes 40 years for some of these information to come out. And we have been talking about that Christoph Harbour issue for weeks now. And we are now finding out how much money they dumped into that entity. And, talking about micro businesses, as you were just a few minutes ago, there's a gentleman over in Nevis, Cabo. He has been saying that we need an injection into small businesses. Every time, almost when he calls in, he says that. Why couldn't we inject into our own local small businesses or micro businesses, as you mentioned earlier? Concerning the Hammond thing, why can't they legalize that? Why is it still illegal? Are they waiting for outside people to come in to start doing that investment work and instructing them to legalize that, like how they're going forward with the medical marijuana thing right now? And the Rastaman and them, I noticed they don't like to participate in politics that much, but they had a landmark case, the Sankofa case. And my question to the Rastaman and them, when they think that they have victory with that case, why did they relax? What are they doing from then to now to keep that case going and to protect their rights? Because now they're complaining about how the government is moving with this marijuana rollout. But that Sankofa case was instrumental in helping them, get at the government and preserve their rights going forward in terms of their sacrament and all the other stuff we've been talking about today so far. And lastly, before I get off, I'm coming straight back at you again as a legal person, right? We have election in St. Kitts and Nevis every 5 years, federal election, right? And suppose a government or a prime minister gets in there and they get so reckless that they just, quote unquote, destroy the place. In 5 years, how much damage can be done where there is not a framework in place to stop them? In terms of a recall, or I'm not seeing anybody on the ground doing 2 things. I'm not seeing any legal minds coming forward, like yourself, to represent the people in terms of challenging the government, in terms of the citizens' personal rights per the Constitution, and also Why are we so scared to protest? Protesting peacefully is a fundamental right to gather an expression from the Constitution. Why we are just complaining and talking so much, but no one is taking the bulls by the horns and guiding the people legally and lawfully in the streets in terms of a protest when they are so dissatisfied with the performance of the now government, especially when we see in the parliament the opposition leader. People are complaining that the opposition leader is not holding the government's feet to the fire. But I'm coming back to the United States today to support my points. We are having hundreds of protests in the United States today against anti-King Trump. That's our legal right. We're going to exercise that today. And all of the, what you call those, the executive orders that he be signing, they're being challenged in court. 19 or such issues they about got up to the federal court so far. Or maybe 13 to 15 issues got up to the Supreme Court. Trump probably won 9 of them, but they are mostly being challenged. And that's my gripe this morning, man. I'm not seeing no protests happening on the ground, and I'm not seeing any legal challenges in the court. And those are my 2 big points for the day. And thank you very much, man, for listening. Thanks a lot.
You have other callers?
No.
Yeah. Basically, I what I would say to you, it's a small, very small legal fraternity, and many of the lawyers are what we call on the dole. They work for the government, and to challenge the government, you're branded easily the enemy of the state, and there are consequences. You don't want to become collateral damage. You have to be brave. You have to be brave to speak truth to power. Thanks to my mom, she taught me that if I don't have a reason for what I do, she will give me a reason. And meaning that I can do anything. I must have a reason to do it, because if I don't have a reason for whatever I did, right or wrong, she will give me a reason, and that reason more often would be a cut ass. So therefore, I had to know what I am doing and why I'm doing it. So I tend to take my time to think things through. And if it bothers me enough, then I will speak about it. But I always want to not only discuss things for the sake of discussing it or defining it, but I always want to educate and move the conversation down the road. The Bryan Clause is something that you can look at, because the United States, you can be born in St. Kitts and become almost everything else except President of the United States. So that is one way of looking at it. Do you want people to be able to be senators and members of parliament if they're born elsewhere, but not be prime minister? We have a problem, because, like I said, our first chief minister was born in Dominica, and he is a national hero. Toussaint Louverture left here and went and became leader of Haiti. Not Toussaint Louverture, sorry, Christophe, and became leader of Haiti. You have Alexander Hamilton, born in Nevis, went to St. Croix and then on to the mainland and became Secretary of the Treasury. People liken him as to the first Prime Minister of the United States, because they said, well, he was running the government, and Washington was really just like the president and a figurehead.
Yeah.
But it's really Hamilton who was running the government.
Yeah, they said who controls the purse controls the country.
He was Secretary of the Treasury. He was the one who brought in the customs. He was the one who brought in the Coast Guard. He was the stock exchange. He was the one who was responsible for all those institutions that are now, part of the U.S. economy. He wrote 52 of the 80 odd federal papers that became the U.S. Constitution. So we know that others can contribute to our national development. You only have to visit the cemetery down in Middle Island, St. Thomas down there, and look at the tombstones, and you're going to see Johnson and maybe other names that are well known within the U.S. The U.S. politics, where their grandfather or grandchild went on to do things, because we were before the United States. The label or the moniker mother colony meant that we were first before the United States or Jamaica or Trinidad or any other. We were first. The British common law came here before it went elsewhere. They became transplanted from us.
Yeah.
And therefore today the 50,000 of us now need a visa to go to the great United States. We should let them know that we gave them what they have, so therefore they owe us, not we owe them. But power,
how it is.
military might is power, and therefore we cannot dictate to them whether by foreign policy or by any other policy.
You have another caller. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, good morning to you and your guests. It just goes to show that preoccupation with being first is not always a good thing. But I'm going to be, call it the naive fool who rush in where angels fear to tread.
Good morning, sir.
I don't mind that. Good morning, Chesley. You made a profound statement that people in power do not like to see ordinary people empower themselves. Now, that has a lot more implications than just stifling the growth of the marijuana industry, cannabis industry, or what they normally call bootlegging, right? Because I think what you said there has implications for the wider economy. It fundamentally affects the socio-economic and political foundation of our country. Recently, there has been some eyebrows raised about how some elite folks are remunerated. And the narrative is that if it was some white man from somewhere, people would not object to their 6- and 7-figure remuneration, okay, or contracts. But because it's a black man from our own, he or she is not deserving. And I think I've heard you subscribe to that position in the past as well. Okay. Now, we should, and this is, I guess, is where the controversy comes in. I am saying that we should be very careful of being drawn into that position unthinkingly, because it is used to excuse a multitude of injustices, sins even. Okay, it reminds me of a movie that I think it was The Edge. It's called, when one of the stars said, "Never feel sorry for a man who owns a plane." Or as one local radio personality would put it, that's a rich people problem. We ordinary people should not get involved, okay, even though it affects us directly, and even though it often involves our hard-earned taxpayers' money, okay? Recently, I've seen people claiming victimhood using that same narrative as a red herring. Okay, they use it to appear to justify getting what appear to be exorbitant amounts paid for services. Now, again, too, it's used as a cover for bad governance and bad practice. Okay? Bad practice is bad practice, regardless of when it is done and by whom it's done and who it's done to, or for whom it's done for. Okay?
You don't control the spoken word, but I want you to get it. Tell me specifically which area you want me to address. Don't generalize it. Tell me the application in a specific area. Let me address that.
Okay. Well, the general, why I use the general is because it's in so many areas. But okay, if you want to select one, right? Okay. Let's take, for instance, the issue of people being appointed to multiple boards.
Okay.
Okay? Why is it necessary for that to happen in a small place like here? Okay? I don't think, even though we're small, I don't think one person, one individual is imbued with particular talents that would require something like that. And the thing is, it often seems that there's conflict, right? Conflict of interest, yet it happens. And what's more obnoxious is the excuse used, well, that's how it has always been, that's how it happened, and there's no attempt to improve on the practice. And it was interesting, because I think it was an interview in which he questioned why certain deals were made, and intimated that it had to be that something untoward or nefarious or something was happening, why those kinds of things happened. And the same thing can be said here. Okay, people are bound to question when they see, and the place is small, certain appointments being made on particular boards, multiple people, well, the same people being put in on them, right? Knowing how expensive our elections and so are run, people are going to draw conclusions, right? So that's a specific thing for you to address. Mm-hmm. Another specific thing I'd like you to address, I actually asked the Prime Minister about why, after 3 years, the Public Accounts Committee is not in place.
He's going to tell you that it's a matter for the opposition.
Some would say skillfully, but I would say pointedly, he sidetracked that particular question and used the same excuse has been used in the past about things taking time. It's a work in progress. I mean, we've been hearing that for years. And I'll finally piggyback on what the previous caller said. You don't have to run for elective politics, but you're an attorney.
Yeah.
Okay? And you know the system more than poor, ordinary us. Why can't you test some of these laws that were put in for to help with our governance? Because again, the Prime Minister made the point that, well, we passed this and we passed that. But I know that, for instance, in the freedom of information, I know of one case where somebody requested information was stonewalled. Why can't you test some of these things to point out that these things aren't working? Maybe they're deliberately put in place, knowing fully well, and put in loopholes and so on, knowing fully well that they don't intend them to be working, right? So that is a role, I think, that you, more than me or the previous caller, can take up because, as I said, you know the system. You know how to work the system. And worse, especially worse, the opposition is not even taking up these things, as if to suggest that, well, if they're in power, they would want to do the same thing. I just sit down and wait for my turn, and that's the frustration. Okay, the things that you'd expect the opposition to be doing, they're not doing, and we suspect is because all of them is the same. So, Chesley, knowing that you're a maverick, knowing that you're different, why don't you save us from ourselves? That's the question.
Because, and I'm going to give you the straight answer. It's only the rich goes to court on principle. And I'm going to repeat it. Only the rich goes to court on principle. It costs. It costs to go to court. It costs money to go to court. It takes resources. If you pass a law tomorrow that says that any person who takes the Constitution and goes to court, right, to give substantive meaning to any of the articles or protections within the Constitution on a constitutional matter, the state is willing to fund it until we have precedents for in that area. If there is no precedent, then if there is a precedent, we won't fund it. But if there is no precedent from the local jurisdiction, the state will undertake to fund that. I would tell you that there would be a number of issues testing things in our jurisdiction. Canada brought into place a Charter of Freedoms, Charter of Right and Freedom in 1983. And for the first 15 years, the government funded a number of legal organizations for women and for minorities to take issues to court so that they can get substantive meaning to areas of their constitution.
Chester,
and I'm saying, yeah.
Let's take a break. Hold your thought. We're overdue a break.
We're overdue a break.
Yes, so let's take it, and we'll get back, and you continue.
Found the South 98.9.
TDC Home and Building Depot is turning up the savings. Shop exclusive deals on Thursday, May 22nd. Visit shoptdcgroup.com from 5 p.m. till midnight. Friday, May 23rd. Get 20% off select in-store items. Mega Reward members get 5% more. Saturday, May 24th. It's our Big Tent Sale with 75% off furniture, tools, and more. TDC, your favorite retail store.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
On Sunday, June 29th from 4 p.m., Carib Beach Club transports you to Destination France for White Sands Parisian Soiree. Featuring the White Swimsuit Competition. Spitmasters DJ Smudge and DJ Terra out of Circuits and Nevis. DJ MJ of Dominica. Travis World and Lums out of Trinidad. And Bishop Escobar of Jamaica. Captivating performances by Sugar City's very own Lucas H.E. and David House and Mr. Mention. Appearing for the first time in St. Kitts, Dancehall at Jamaica. Performing his biggest hits, Jamaican dancehall sensation. And bringing the energy from Trinidad, Miguel Tasia. White Sands will be hosted by top DJ and radio personality Sweet Sister Sensia and Jamaican radio host CJ Smart. Tickets Tickets are just $120. Pay $150 at the door. For online tickets, visit Carabola It's a French affair on Sunday, June 29th at Carabola Beach Club for the summer's hottest all-white party. White Sands Parisian Soiree!
And we're back. The time is approximately 11:15, and Mr. Chesley Hamilton, it's back to you.
Yes. We forget that it's Tonai, I think his last name, Dorset, was the one who took on Dwyer Astafan on the issue, probably of, I think it was dual citizenship in the courts. Basically, you choose a person, a man of straw, so to speak, because you say, well, at the end of the day, the person is a man of straw, they can't afford to pay. But if a court award costs against you for losing a case, there are people who could lose their homes, lose their livelihoods. That shouldn't be when you're testing something as fundamental of what does the dual citizenship clause mean within the Constitution, when the issue of whether Denzel Douglas could own a diplomatic passport from another country while being in Parliament. There was a young man from Newton Ground who the government used to bring that against him. There are things like that. They're using these so-called men of straw to further their agenda, but they shouldn't have to hide behind that. The state should say, listen to me, when you're testing matters of fundamental rights and freedom, the state will pay. There is a certain tariff that goes with it, and we will pay to give substantive meaning to our constitutions. We're not doing that. We're not encouraging this because the governments want to hide behind the public purse. I heard the government said that the unity government said that the previous government spent $88 million funding lawyers in the last 2 years of the Douglas administration. $88 million. And when I charge a mere $50,000 for a criminal matter, for a murder case, they say it's too much. If I win a case and a no-case submission, I get nothing because they say it didn't reach a certain stage. Or I get $3,500. You know how much money I save the government by bringing a no-case submission? Bringing in ballistic expert for preliminary inquiry and for trial, bringing in DNA expert, bringing in pathologists, bringing in all of these persons, paying them $200 US per day from the time they left the office, wherever they come in, airfare, hotel fare, ground transportation, food, all of those things. I'm saving the government by winning a case and a no-case submission, and I can't be paid a mere $20,000 US for that case. That is the sort of thing that they're telling me. One AG told me I am a victim of my success. So I'm not supposed to be paid for 10 no-case submissions. 10. Because I'm a victim of my success. Another AG said to me, right, he is bringing in a public defender unit to represent people in capital matters so that the government don't have to pay me that kind of money. What kind of money? Less than $50,000 EC for a flat for a murder case where one citizen lost their life and one citizen have the threat of losing either their life in terms of a life sentence or their life in terms of a death sentence. The most serious matters before the court. And that is what AGs are saying to me. I'm just letting you know that the issue here is that we are not a people who want to invest in our development, whether educationally, and I mean that in the broad sense. The government has the majority in parliament because cabinet is the parliament, is the majority in parliament. So the executive and the legislature is one. And then they are encroaching on the judiciary.
Caller, go ahead.
Good morning, Brother Quint again. Good morning, Mr. Hamilton.
Good morning.
Sorry I didn't get here when Mr. Bull Jones was speaking. Mr. Hamilton, I look at the Constitution in respect to the Bryan Clause. And correct me if I'm wrong. In the reading that stated that the Bryan Clause spoke to citizens who did not born in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, right? That will bar them from running for office, like Prime Minister. Now, that is the headline. So anything else, in my view, until I get correction, which will be probably a drawn out, if it doesn't speak for citizens who were born in the Federation, but it spoke to citizens who were born outside the Federation, where does it stand? And the interpretation need to clarify, because I believe natural born citizens from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis should be able to run. And that trump the whole reading moving forward. So why is it? And I don't think Sean and Lindsey Grant did any scrutiny of that when they gave up their citizenship. And I'm encouraging anyone to look at that Constitution. I don't know the whole Constitution, but that bothers me. And that needs to be clarified, because I'm telling anyone who feel like they need to run, they want to run, they should run, in our upcoming elections should need be, and there are needs. Until who will come and define that Constitution?
All I'm saying to you,
What
I'm saying to you is this. You should be able to take any case, a reference case as it's called, to the courts and ask the court a question. And you shouldn't have to worry that if you lose, you're going to lose your house. The state should pay for that. That's what I'm saying to you. Let the state let the court give the true interpretation and the true meaning, from the highest authority, the people who sit on the bench, the legal minds. A reference case should be put into, and I'm going to add something to you, to what you are saying. We swear allegiance to the British monarch. I'm going to put it that way. Well, the British monarch is the same monarch that Canada has.
Absolutely.
But they would say, I am swearing allegiance to a different state, a different country. So therefore, I cannot, even though I'm swearing the same allegiance to the same monarch, the British monarch, her heirs are his heirs and his successors, it doesn't count. You see the stupidity of some of the things that we are entangled in, and we're not bringing any clarification, and we are preventing our citizens from testing these things. I'm going to show you something, I'm going to tell you something about the Sankofa case. Many days Sankofa would come up into my office with his appeal. And I would say to Sankofa, I am not going to do your case. Not because you are not right, not because you don't have the right arguments, not because you don't have the right grounds. But if I represent you and did not, and half bake your case, I did not present it in the way that it can, because I don't have the necessary resources to go with the government, right? You're going to lose a good case. You know your material better than me. That's what I told Sankofa. Sankofa did the research. He knew the history of and the development of the plan. He knew all of the articles, all of the he did the research. I said, Sankofa, you do your case. Once you start and you're going down this road, the court, the bench is duty bound to help you. That's what I said to him. So said, so done. Once he started and they realized that Sankofa was onto something, they stopped him. And they didn't want to get too involved when they see where he was going. So you know what they did? They appointed a QC for him. Now, whether the QC redid the grounds or tailored the argument and decide this one is better than those two over there, and the QC took up Sankofa case, brought the necessary expert, bringing the expert evidence from different people, so that at the end of the day, he won his case. But the strategy of how to get it done, Sankofa didn't have the money. Sankofa is quiet. He ain't got no money. He ain't got no money. He ain't got no money. Sankofa didn't have to go through that. Should not have to go through that. The state should provide the money for Sankofa to be able to push fundamental cases like that to the court, and it be paid for by the state, because all of us benefit in the end. Sankofa should not have had to go through that. The pressures, if Sankofa was not as tenacious and as determined as he is, we wouldn't be where we are today. Okay? And that is what I am saying. You shouldn't have to pay that kind of a price. The state should be able to say, listen to me, any citizen who has a fundamental question before the court, matters should be paid for by the state.
Mr. Hamilton, let me ask you a question, if I may.
Yeah.
You said that you gave up your Canadian citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
As a legal individual and in reference to the Constitution, why did you give up your Canadian Constitution?
Well, there was legislation that passed that you can't if you're running for office, you had to sign a declaration that you have sworn no allegiance to any other foreign state or power, right? And in order to become a Canadian citizen, there is an oath that you had to take and I'm laughing, to Her Majesty the Queen, then her heirs and successors.
Which, as you stated before, is the same.
Which is the same in the but I didn't want that I am running and I have any cloud hanging over my head in terms of litigation.
Yes.
Because I don't want anybody to come and say, well, you got to pay any fine or you can't take your seat or any of that sort of thing. So I just clear the air in terms of that. It takes 15 months to renounce your citizenship, your Canadian citizenship. 15 months. Chesley was able to pull it off in 6 weeks. Just put it that way.
But the reason I asked that question is because, number one, as you stated, it's the same.
Is it the same crowd? Is it
same crowd? So as a legal individual, why didn't you put that forward that it's a misnomer, really?
I don't want to be lawyer and client in the same matter. I don't want me to be in the balance.
Okay.
You know, if I'm going to advocate for you, I will advocate resolutely for you, but I don't want to be in the balance. You know, I don't want to be in the balance. I'll remove that hurdle.
Okay, I understand that, because some may term it a conflict of interest to some extent, even though I really don't see it. But don't you think that going forward then, that would be a misnomer?
Look, it is ridiculous. I'm putting it that way. And that's sometimes when you write laws for specific purpose, you know, the consequences are enormous. And I say that because, you know, when that area of candidacy and so on were written, You couldn't be part of the military, I think, and run for office. You couldn't be an ordained minister
Yes.
and run for office. So therefore, Pastor Connor couldn't run
Yes.
up the village, in one of the constituencies after, and so on. So there were specific targets in terms of some of this. The Billy clause was said to, if you lose, you can't be then appointed to cabinet.
Yes.
Because that was we don't want William Herbert in government.
Yeah.
The Bryan clause was if you were not born here, one of your parents from St. Kitts and Nevis or grandparent, you then couldn't run for office. I mean, they didn't even say you could run, but these are the limitations. No,
Yeah.
you couldn't even be a candidate. So and we took that knowing what Fitzroy Bryant had contributed to the federation as a minister of education, etc. We now have a whole college named after him. We did that knowing that Paul Southwell was born in Dominica. You understand? And I could go on and on. The issue is, why are we deciding that those people who have contributed historically to our federation, we are going to stop that going forward? There was specific reasons, but nobody, when they reach into office, then wants to then say, listen to me, let us have a realistic view
Yeah.
about how we are going to deal with this going forward. Because, hey, if you do that, it might benefit Chesley, it might benefit Dwyer, it might benefit Dennis Merchant, it might benefit Rupert Hobart. You hear how many people are calling?
Yeah. Yeah.
It might benefit Constance Mitchum, it might benefit, you see, and I could go on and on naming people who have already served,
Yes.
many of them,
Yes.
who have dual citizenship, okay? But at the time we weren't doing anything about it. But since the Tunai case, we are policing it in a way, and we have passed legislation to say we don't want this because it eliminates certain people and it gives opportunity to others.
Yeah. You have another caller. Hello, caller.
Yes. I'm hearing, again, I'm not going to say exclusively, but I'm hearing about how difficult it is to effect change in the system and essentially to get justice. Okay? What I would like to ask Mr. Hamilton, do we then just throw our hands up? Is there no recourse? There's nothing we can do? Because, again, he's a professional, belongs to a professional association, the Bar Association. Can't he advocate among his colleagues that, listen, these things are not right, and we should be, even before having to go to going through the hoops of accessing the courts, we collectively can suggest to the whether the AG or whoever, the powers that be, certainly an association of lawyers have to have some kind of voice, some kind of clout. Why can't he select that route then? Because you see, why should it wait until, as Burl had suggested, it comes to protest in the street? Because the ordinary man who is concerned with bread and butter issues, he's not concerned with those esoteric kind of arguments and so on, even though they do affect him.
Let me answer you this way.
But the lawyers know better. You all know better.
Let me answer you this way.
Why can't you all do something about it? That is what I'm trying to get at. How do you effect change?
Stick a pin. Let me answer you this way. I want to, at this point in time, offer my condolences to the family of Agatha James. And I sincerely mean that. When Agatha had an issue before the court, she came to my office asking for me to represent her. And I said, Agatha, these matters are going to cost A, B, C, D, E, F, G. She said, listen to me, that means I will have to probably sell a vehicle or something. I say, I don't want you have to no sell no asset for me to represent you. Well, here's what I'm going to do. From a strategic point of view, I'm going to get someone to represent you. I got Mr. Tim Predu, a white gentleman from Turks and Caicos, to represent Agatha. And he would come to my office, meet with her, sit with her, do whatever. Today, her document is still in my office because we had to scan it and send it to him and so on. Agatha died. The last time Agatha went to court, the judge said to the prosecution she would have to win an Oscar to be pretending or acting. That woman is sick. I think you all should go and, take a certain course, meaning withdraw the matters before the court. I said to the prosecution at the time, your main witness is dead. Okay? And before that main witness died, that main witness had Alzheimer's, so you all ain't got no case. Agatha James died, and it's Tuesday they went to court and withdraw the matters. I am simply saying to you, it costs to advocate. When Wingrove George got himself in trouble, when the state decided to go after Wingrove George ran around town, can't get nobody to represent him. He reached by Chesley Hamilton again. Yes, somebody gonna say, boy, you must be rescue the perishing, care for the dying. And I got a lawyer out of Guyana to do the drafting for Wingrove George on my account. And I'm not afraid to say the fee for that person to do the arguments was $25,000 EC, a mere $10,000 US. And Wingrove George couldn't get no help from nobody. Nobody in labor, nobody in the private sector, nobody, so that I could pay that lawyer who did all the drafting and submissions on his behalf. Wingrove George is going to tell you he and God went to court and he win his case, but he ain't going to tell you who did the submissions. I am simply telling you, there's only so much you can do, especially when you're going up against the state. It costs. I used a network of contacts and people to help, but if there is no political will from any government to say, listen to me, my people's rights are not given substantive meaning within the law. Something is written on a piece of paper, but what it really means, we need to get the courts to pronounce on these things, and we're going to encourage that as a part of our democracy and our development. We're not going to go anywhere because, again, I don't have the resources alone. Me one can't have the resources. And people are, at the end of the day, they didn't teach you in law school that the law is a business. They tell you it's a virtuous profession and those kind of things. But those things can't pay the bills. And they cannot pay the rent. And they cannot pay the mortgage. And they can't feed your family.
And the system is well aware of those things.
So we're screwed.
Yeah.
Unless there is an understanding. Listen to me. Picking up and going around with a hat and saying, listen to me, like when we had the boundary cases. You go up and you say, listen to me, we need a little money for the lawyers. I got Kamla Pasaba says to come here. She paid her way. Kamla said, find some way for me to sleep. I will pay my way. You understand? Lindsay undertook to deal with Mia Motley. But we got decisions which all the way to the Privy Council and back. These things cost. The state should pay for those cases. Because we all are better off because of those judgments. But when time comes to pay costs now, and McLear Taylor firm, who bear the brunt of the paperwork and so on, is going to get a little chiching, no, we can't give Mackie all the money. Why we envious of one another? Why? We won 11 cases in a row,
So,
and up to now, not one penny has been paid in costs.
So, Mr. McMahon, the answer is the system is, it is convenient for the system to leave those impediments in place because it benefits them in the long run.
And it discourages others from coming forward.
But worse than that. So you're saying it's just the system, we can't change it.
We don't want virtuous men because to run for office. You are quite willing to vote for the guy who offer you 2 beers, or give you a shirt and some $300 or $200 to vote. The person who bribing you to vote is the same person who's going to be corrupt in office.
Yeah.
But you taking the $200.
Big point.
You understand me? Nobody could point no finger at me and say that I ever. He said, Bakali could give me 2 beers, and I said, boy, somebody gonna offer you 3. Me and give me no beer to vote for me. Them 2 things they can't go in the same sentence. If you want me to buy your beer, but don't put nothing about I for you to vote for me. I am not paying you to vote for me. And I don't care who you vote for. Those are the kind of things I would say to people. Maybe that's why I'm not elected.
But Prince, you realize that is slavery all over again.
What that
Then
is?
you're going to put somebody saying, basically bribing them for a vote, right? I don't care if it's a beer, or $200, or $250, or $500. Basically, what you're doing there is putting a price on something as precious as a vote.
Yeah.
What's the point? So what's the point of our existence after all this time? It's a betrayal of what our ancestors went through.
But let's not lose the point that Chesley Hamilton is making. The big point is this: if you are ready to accept a bribe from someone to put them into office, how can you expect the person that gave you the bribe so they could get in office to be honorable when they get into office? Then they get into office and your hands up and you're saying, how come I don't get this? How come they're not defending that? How come they're down pressing the people? But you voted for that. That is the point that Chesley is making. The fact that, you see, I saw this happening, and I'm sure a lot of us, you also saw this happening when out of the blue we just started seeing politicians offering. It used to be they go to a little rum shop and they give you something to eat and so, but then people, the electorate starting demanding that you pay me $500 and you pay me what are you saying? What is the message you're sending to the politicians?
So Chesley, what are your recommendations to improve the system? Or are you throwing your hands up too?
No, I'm not throwing up my hands, and maybe that's why I am here, because you have to let people know I am not begging you for anything, and I don't want anything. So I'm not running for office, and when I speak here, I speak truth to power. I'm not afraid to speak truth to power. I'm not afraid to come here and tell people that right now in prison, we are sending people to prison, right? And they are sleeping on the bunk bed, somebody on the top, or people on the top, people on the lower bunk, and people under the bunk. And we don't know that that's what we are doing. And what we are saying is that carte blanche, we're not giving no bail for this, and we're not giving any bail for that. You're supposed to understand where you're sending people before you send them there. But at a basic level, what I'm wanting to tell you, if you don't care about the worst in our society, if you don't care about fundamental rights and freedom, don't expect people to care about you when you're sick, or when you have cancer, or when you need your road fixed, or when you need anything else.
Yeah.
You are talking about the decadence of society. Our humanity is not known by what sort of edifice we build and so on. Our humanity, you can't measure people's barbarism by what they have or what they don't have. You have to begin to understand and read people and understand that if a person care, they're going to care whether they have or they don't have. That is the key.
So
you can't measure a person's heart. You can't measure the person's deprivation. You can't measure that because I live in an ivory tower, I am not discriminated against, or because you live in the ghetto in a shack, you are discriminated. You cannot measure levels of discrimination. You have to understand that these are universal things that manifest themselves differently.
Yeah. Let's take a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Shopping with TDC just got much easier. Here's how. Log on to shoptdcgroup.com. Shop at your convenience at any time, from anywhere, with your smartphone, tablet, or computer. With our safe and secure payment checkout, you choose the option to pick up in-store or have your goods delivered right to your door. It's that easy. Shop tdcgroup.com, your one-stop online store.
Shop anywhere, shop anytime, same quality you love. Now online. Shop
www.shoptdcgroup.com.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
On Sunday, June 29th from 4 p.m., Carib Beach Club transports you to Destination France for White Sands Parisian Soiree. Featuring the White Swimsuit Competition. Spitmasters DJ Smudge and DJ Terra out of Circuits and Nevis. DJ MJ of Dominica. Travis World and Lums out of Trinidad. And Bishop Escobar of Jamaica. Captivating performances by Sugar City's very own Lucas H.E. and David House and This Dimension. Appearing for the first time in St. Kitts, Dancehall at Jamaica. Performing his biggest hits, Jamaican dancehall sensation, Quad. And bringing the energy from Trinidad, Miguel Tasia. White Sands will be hosted by top DJ and radio personality Sweet Sister Sensia and Jamaican radio host CJ Spark. Tickets are just $120. Pay $150 at the door. For online tickets, visit Carabola-Beach-Club.com. It's a French affair on Sunday, June 29th at Carabola Beach Club for the summer's hottest all-white party. White Sands Parisian Soiree.
People make the
And we're back. The time is 11:48. I see the phones lighting up. Let me see if I can get a caller engaged. Hello, caller. Good day.
Yeah, hello? Yeah, I'm back, right?
Yes. Hello?
Good morning.
Yeah, hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, hello?
Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to get back and ask Chesney like one or two more quick questions before we get off. Back at the brand clause, right? We know when we go to court, there is certain conditions that got to be met or not met in order for a case to go forward. In terms of, we're asking questions whether should we prosecute or not prosecute. Okay, with the brand clause, there is some conditions that got to be met. You got to be born inside, like the original case was against somebody that was born outside the Federation. Those are also conditions that got to be met. You're not born outside, you're born inside. Your parents are born inside, at least one parent, like you mentioned. But then we get down to the allegiance and allegiance to the But my question to him is that there, we are not talking about one condition or two conditions. We are talking about multiple conditions that got to be met or not met in order for a person to be disqualified. So why we are so bent on the allegiance, but we are not thinking about the other two conditions? Why is allegiance carrying more weight your birthright? That's the question to him on that, and I get past that. I rest my case there. Ask him. I need him to answer these questions as a legal mind.
Caller, you're breaking up. We're not getting you too clearly. So rephrase what you asked before, because there were places where you dropped out.
Okay, what I'm asking is that there's that have been met or not met in order to move this forward to disqualify a person. We already know that it was against the person that was born outside the Federation. But when we get to the allegiance part, why is the allegiance part carrying more weight than the other conditions, like you born inside the Federation and you?
Okay, I think I got a gist of what you're saying. You're breaking up, so let me try and answer you in this way. I don't like to answer legal questions in a vacuum. Answering legal questions without, the factual basis or the factual matrix can be problematic. You need specific facts to address many times when you're dealing with things, and discussing legal issues in a vacuum can be difficult. I don't think that any one limb, if you fail on one limb, you fail. That's how it's going to be interpreted. And that is why I'm simply saying to you, you bring reference cases and take those reference cases to the courts, and the court will give you substantive meaning. They will give you clarity. But again, you dare take a reference case. I asked the Attorney General to take a reference case to the court, and you will be in trouble, because if you lose, they're going to be asking for costs in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, because the government is going to say, listen to me, you put us to work. We had to bring in two king councils, and we had to put our whole department to work, and we had to have so many boxes of paper and this and that, and one person got cost of $1.5 million in a case they took the Nevis. I mean, who could afford $1.5 million if they lose? Thank God the person won. But again, people picked up money to help that person pay their legal costs, right? But when they win, they say that where do they start to give back? They're not going to give back anything. So that person pocket the whole $1.5 million. I'm just simply telling you what goes on here.
Yeah.
Money is part of the issue. Who's going to pay? Who's going to receive? All of that. And when you have money as part of the issue, you get divided loyalties and divided thing, because certain people don't want you to benefit in any which way.
Let me ask this question then, because that is why.
So I'm asking for the government to level the playing field, but also to provide funding.
Yeah, that is what Mr. McMahon was trying to get at. His question in a nutshell was, so do we just throw our hands up? So that is why I will ask you this. We know that the Attorney General is a representative for the government, because the government needs that legal advice. Okay, is that so?
Yeah.
Okay, so because the Attorney General is linked with the government, we don't expect the Attorney General to do otherwise. So what is the position of someone like the Ombudsman? Does the Ombudsman only represent civil servants, or can citizens across the board go to the Ombudsman? And if not the Ombudsman, who is there other than the Ombudsman? And if the Ombudsman takes up a case, let's say hypothetically a citizen can go to the Ombudsman, the Ombudsman takes up a case and bring it, then who provides finances for the ombudsman to represent the case?
Well, I know of the ombudsman writing to ministries.
Yes.
And the ministry is basically telling the ombudsman, in my words, go to hell.
Okay.
They're not answering the ombudsman. They're not getting back to the ombudsman. And over, and the ombudsman, he's not going to keep a press conference to say, well, this is
what is
suffering
happening.
these difficulties.
Yes. Because he's appointed by...
He's appointed by the government, and
Yeah,
he's not...
so-
he's going to quietly try to do what he can do, but the issue is, if he's getting nowhere...
he can do nothing.
He's not going to bring it to the attention of the public. But I know of instances where I have sent people to the ombudsman. They've come back down the road by my office and said, this is what is going on.
Yeah.
You understand? But the ombudsman is not a lawyer, and more often than not doesn't have the resources to take anything to court.
That is why I asked the question, because oftentimes the system gives us the impression it's like where we had the union and then corporations got their own individual inside, and what did they call them? Public relations officer, where the representation for the company comes from someone inside the company. Now, you can't really get good representation from that, but yet still the system push that forward and says, but if you have a problem, go to the ombudsman. The ombudsman takes care. So we're left in a
we got democracy and the Westminster style democracy, but we didn't bring many of the quasi-judicial bodies that we need to have. We don't have human rights commissions in St. Kitts.
Yes.
And legislation. Many of the quasi-judicial bodies that we should have, we don't have them. The Labor Department is still a department of the government.
Yeah.
We don't have industrial courts, so to speak. The Employment Protection Act doesn't cover many government departments and agencies, and government departments are not unionized as well.
Yeah.
So we have things that appear to be there, but the truth is, when there's a labor government, the labor union is afraid to rock the boat.
Yes.
And we only have one major union in St. Kitts. If we had a public service union or a teachers union, the nurses union, the public service union, and so on, then we may be in a different position no matter who is in government.
Yeah.
But we don't, and we're not doing our best to advance these sort of quasi-judicial organization and bodies which help to police and provide checks and balances to the power that is vested in the executive and the parliament, the legislature. And I was speaking about the judiciary. What people don't know is that the magistracy, the magistrates are part of the executive.
Yeah.
The magistrates, the PS in legal affairs control the budgets of the magistrates. Control them. They're not independent of the administration, and therefore they have to virtually listen when the powers that be talk. I know right now there is someone who has a problem with the Public Service Commission, and the same persons who are part of the tribunal for their matter are the same people who that person is accusers. So they are both trying his matter, arbitrating his matter, and providing witness against him and putting him on suspension. How could that be fair, due process?
We have a final caller. Hello, caller.
Yes. Just one quick intervention. We should stop saying the system. Everybody knows the system is broken, right? We should stop using the system as cover, and name and shame. The system is operated by real people in real life, and until they're held into account, and not hide behind
But
quote
who,
unquote the system.
but caller, who will name and shame them? Because again, there's a whole lot of legal ramifications. Even though I'm not Chesley Hamilton, I know some of the problems that will come out of that, where you have
But Crane,
wait,
I'm
let
not
me
saying that
let me make
you
the
defame
point.
Anybody.
Because you said name and shame.
Yeah.
You that is
I'm
going to
not
pose
saying that you defame. I'm saying name and shame, meaning just like for instance.
But you might say
you were talking just now about the ombudsman.
Yes.
The ombudsman has a name. You were talking just now about particular persons who in the civil service who are essentially being judge, jury, and executioner. Name and shame. These are particular persons. You're not defaming them.
But it's not
You're
as
asking them to do their job and to be fair.
But it's not as simple as that. What I'm saying is, and Chesley will make that his final point, perhaps. What I'm saying is, after you have named and you think you're shaming, how do you prove what you have named and who you are trying to shame? It's still going to wind back in the court system.
No, if you are actually pointed out as somebody who is not delivering the justice that you should, or not being fair as you could, you want to tell me that if somebody point a finger directly at you, nothing defamation, I'm not talking about defamation, but saying you are holding back my case, you want to tell me that that person, that it's going to be like water running off a duck back? I don't think so. I honestly think they'll be forced to respond.
This is why this reminds me of your argument, I think it was yesterday, along the Haiti case vein. And this is why sometimes, with all due respect, I think not only you, but a lot of us are naive as to the whole process of how things work. Because even if even if you know someone is wrong about something and you accuse them, you still have to prove that they are wrong. That is
you're not proving that they're wrong. They all have a particular job to do. I presume they have job descriptions. I presume that they are accountable to somebody above them. And you want to tell me that you can't go to somebody who is supposed to be delivering some form of justice to you and say, look, you are not doing this. And if he still insists that, well, I'm not doing this, you can't go to higher up and higher up and higher up. You Chesley mentioned the Sankofi case, and apparently it was because of persistence and resilience why it actually ended up as it did. But maybe that's what it takes. Okay? Maybe that's what it takes for people who are wronged, who feel wronged. Maybe that's what it takes for them to get things right.
Yeah, caller, we're out of time, Mr. Hamilton. I'm going to let you have the last word.
Thanks for having me again. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Whether you want to call it the system or you want to call it as we're participating in our democracy is not every 4 years when we have elections, every 5 years when we have elections. The jury duty is part of that participation in policing the jury system. Now you're taking away that right and making it one appointed person. Again, the appointed it has become the anointed, and therefore the citizenship and the people who are supposed to participate in everyday decisions in terms of where money and resources are spent and how things are done, they're not letting their voices be heard, and more the appointed and the anointed are taking away those rights, and it's a creep up. And unless we get up and stand up and participate more in our democracy and demand that people be given more of the benefits of the sweat and blood and tears of their forefathers who sweat and worked in the sugar industry and elsewhere, we are going to find a new set of imperialism and a new set of colonialism where other people own the land and become the landlords while we become nothing more than the working peasants and the poor and the underprivileged again.
Yeah.
With those words, I leave you all for another 2 weeks to mull over. Thanks for having me.
Take care, and thanks for taking the time to indulge us.
You found the sound. 98.